And it's time for Lefties Losing It. Let's start the program by hearing from a tolerant, loving and inclusive leftie who is calling on her fellow lefties to, shoot their political opponents? No, really, that's what she's saying. And yes, she's got those crazy eyes.
Okay, guys, so I would like to start a new movement called CMAGA, because people like that respond to fear and terror and aggression, not logic and empathy and, I don't know, intelligence. It doesn't work for them. So fear works. So if we all get our guns and use our Second Amendment right and our common sense, at this point this administration is begging us to rise up and revolt. And you see somebody with a MAGA hat, pew pew, that's what we do.
Just imagine the echo chamber this lunatic exists in, that she thought it was a good idea to say this, to tape this and then put it on the internet.
It's the only way. Put them back in their basements, make them scared again to be racist, homophobic, and terrible, just awful pieces of because I would way rather live next to immigrants than MAGA people. MAGA people deserve to be terrified and scared to walk in the streets because they should know that real Americans are going to kill them.
And if you thought that was bad, she's now doubled down and is singing her death threats. I really think it's time to reopen the asylums, all of them.
See MAGA, pew pew MAGA. See MAGA, pew pew MAGA. See MAGA, pew pew MAGA. So these mother know we here to play. You can't run around and with our neighbors. You can't be a homophobic piece of you can't just be generally awful.
I wonder if the authorities have caught up with her yet. Now, I think we need to hear from the opposite of whatever that was. Here is my gal, Sarah Gonzalez, and she had me worried here for just a second.
Oh my God, I am literally shaking right now. I just read the news that John Bolton's home was just raided by the FBI. We knew this was going to happen. At the exact same time it was being raided, Kash Patel posted on X, "No one is above the law." And I just want to make one thing really clear. I voted for this.
Isn't she fabulous? I love her. Now, one of the best ways to handle lefties is to lampoon them, mock them till they cry and then mock them for crying. We love works of satire like this.
We're gender fluid. You can only be allowed in our LGBTQWSTYZ community if you have pink, green or blue hair. Stand up for our rights! We're gender fluid. When you join our community, you get a free septum piercing. Stand up for your rights, everyone! Stand up! We're gender fluid. This tree misgendered me. Ah! It's literally genocide! We're gender fluid. We shout at people that misgender us even though we don't know our gender half the time. Stand up for your rights now! LGBT community!
Now, the era of the unfunny comic is almost over. You know who I mean, the Hannah Gadsby types who inflict leftist lectures on their audiences rather than any laughs. That era is almost over, but not quite, because look at who's being celebrated in Edinburgh. Yes, it's a British comedian you've never heard of, trans comic Sam Nicresti. If only he was funny.
They really think they've got us nailed on sports. Oh, look at these trans women, they're so good at throwing, they've got an unfair physical advantage. I thought the whole point of sports was someone has an unfair physical advantage. No, it's not my scene, but is it someone's born with good knees and then they win, right? If I'm in a race with Usain Bolt, I'm not standing there like, well, this isn't fair, he can run faster than me. That's sports, one person wins. 99% of professional sports players are losers for a living, and I don't care who hears me say it.
Yeah, that's as good as it got. And that act, that deeply unfunny therapy session, won the best comedy show at this year's Edinburgh Fringe.
It's not just a gendered thing, because believe me, if I started playing women's rugby, those women would snap my spine. The subtext of these arguments when it comes to trans women is always the same. Men are pretending to be women in order to invade female-only spaces. Sports, prisons, toilets, lush. Always the same. I don't get why, like, hack comedians hate them so much, taken to the airwaves to express their opprobrium at the gender-neutral toilet brigade. I thought hack comedians would love gender-neutral toilets.
About as funny as an ingrown toenail. Now let's check in on the Democrats in the great state of Florida. This next rep is having a little meltdown because Governor Ron DeSantis painted over a rainbow crossing and made it look like an actual crossing.
Hey everyone, it's Representative Ana Villascamani, and I'm here right now at the Pulse Rainbow Crosswalk that FDOT thought was appropriate to sneak into our community in the middle of the night and to totally erase. Who decided it was appropriate to erase an entire community here in Orlando. We're not going to let it stand. We're going to do everything we can to restore this crosswalk, but to also fight back against the extremism coming out of both the state of Florida and the White House.
Now, there is a divide in America. It's a divide between the cities and smaller towns. There's a divide between blue and red states and cities. If you want to see real America, then forget about LA and San Francisco or New York. Head south for a road trip through places like Texas, Tennessee and Florida. It's a different country. It's practically a different world, a better one. And that's why so many New Yorkers and Californians and other blue state dwellers are fleeing to the red states. And here, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis explains his foolproof political strategy.
I actually do have a cheat code to be governor of Florida. I just look at what California and Illinois and New York, but particularly California, I look what they're doing, and I just do the opposite. And that works out very well. They allow homeless to take over major cities. We don't do that in Florida. They are a sanctuary state. They give illegal aliens benefits and invite them in. We do the opposite.
But as Ron DeSantis explains, the lunacy and reckless leftist policies of blue states still impact the whole country.
They issued a commercial driver's license to an illegal alien who didn't speak English, worked for a California company, and he ended up killing 3 people in Florida recently, and we're now holding him accountable. But their policies are not only been bad for California, they are spilling over into other states and has been very, very destructive.
Joining me now is Newsweek Senior Editor-at-Large and Article 3 Project Senior Counsel Josh Hammer. Josh, you're one of the millions of Americans who in recent years has moved south, moved to a red state. Tell me about the two Americas and why you made the decision to move.
Yeah, so Rita, I've actually lived in multiple of America's iconic red states. I've been in Florida now for 4 years. Actually, my Florida-versary is actually this very week. So I've been here for 4 years. I actually also did I did a 4-year stint in Texas as well. So I've actually lived a number of years now in America's 2 iconic red states. I was actually also born in New York State. I went to law school in Chicago, lived in Washington, D.C. So I've really seen both extremes. Rita, I can boil it down to I think a very simple dichotomy, which is that life is easy in red states. Life is harder in blue states. You are taxed more in blue states. You have to turn around behind your back when you're walking the urban streets in blue states because you don't know what kind of criminal or what kind of illegal alien is going to come there. I actually learned this the hard way yet again just a few years ago. I was taking my then girlfriend, now my wife, to Chicago. It was our first time ever visiting there. It was kind of a law school reunion thing for me. Her luxury purse was stolen in broad daylight in Streeterville, which is actually one of the most well-to-do neighborhoods in all of Chicago. This is not kind of South Side Chicago. This is not Southwest Chicago. This is not gang banging violence. This is like real kind of like wealthy inner city downtown Chicago, like professors, academics live there. You know, and Washington, D.C., I mean, my goodness gracious, Rita, I've basically cut down my visits to D.C. in part, at least until Trump's cracked, and I was trying to limit my visits because it's just not as pleasant a place to be anymore there. But on the other side, when I was living in Greg Abbott's Texas, and certainly now in Ron DeSantis' Florida there, life is just a breeze there. I mean, the homeless situation there, we barely notice it here in South Florida. We obviously are taxed exceedingly low there. And government fundamentally is out to just make your life easier. That really, I think, is how I could sum up the difference. Life harder blue states, life easier red states. And by the way, the decennial U.S. Census shows very clearly that all sorts of people are doing exactly what I did. The major blue states, California, New York, Illinois, Connecticut, New Jersey, they're all hemorrhaging citizens. They're all flocking to Texas, Tennessee, Arizona, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, of course, as well there. So the stats don't lie, as they say as well.
They don't, but sometimes they bring their politics, Josh, and I think you only have to look at Austin, Texas to see that because I don't know, that doesn't feel like Texas anymore. Anytime I'm there, it feels a little bit California to me. You see the homelessness like you don't see in other parts of Texas. You see general decay and all sorts of other unpleasantness. Now, let's talk about the raid on the home of former National Security Advisor John Bolton. That would be this character.
One doesn't have to be brilliant to attempt a coup.
I disagree with that. As somebody who has helped plan coup d'etat, not here, but, other places.
Yeah, okay. Josh, tell me about this raid. It appears that it's not just over the classified information that may or may not be in his book or the classified documents he may have sent to family members. It may also be connected to any role he played in the Russian collusion hoax.
Yeah, so first of all, Rita, I mean, what an amazing clip that was. I mean, this has been around for a few years, but John Bolton just literally saying, like, yeah, I've actually helped plan coup d'etats in other countries there. I have helped plan color revolutions there. I mean, this is basically the encapsulation. This is the personification of the neoconservative foreign policy that the entire Trump movement utterly detests and fundamentally rejects. And because John Bolton and Donald Trump simply do not see eye to eye on these issues ever since he was fired as National Security Advisor back during the first Trump term, he has been on a sustained, now basically 6-year-long bender where he basically just goes on cable news. He goes to the tabloids, the broadsheets, whoever will publish him or take his quotations, and just trashes Donald Trump from A to Z. And part of that has been a long-standing, very, very strong, I would say close to ubiquitous sneaking suspicion that John Bolton is laundering classified information that he still has retained from his time as National Security Advisor in an attempt to just besmirch and then undermine Donald Trump by any means necessary. Now, it's interesting, Rita, as the New York Post, among others, reported there actually was, in the final days of the first Trump administration in 2020, potential attempt to do something similar to John Bolton at that time, to try to make sure, go into his home, see what he was doing there. Was he actually leaking? Was he not? And then the transition happened, very chaotic transition, January 6th, all that. Biden comes in, and the Biden DOJ and the Biden FBI spike it. So the Biden DOJ actually spiked this planned raid, this planned investigation, just trying to cover for John Bolton for the very simple reason that he's now vehemently anti-Trump. So look, fundamentally, Rita, I will say this. I have not seen the search warrant. No American other than law enforcement, the magistrate judge, has seen the search warrant there. I feel extremely confident that there is no world in which Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, and Kash Patel, the FBI Director, there is no world whatsoever where they would have ordered this raid unless they had the goods there. So I feel pretty confident that we're going to learn a lot more about this in the week ahead there. And I would just try to lawyer up, frankly, if I were John Bolton right now.
Yep, there's got to be accountability, and as we are fond of saying, no one is above the law, but the leftist media is painting this as sort of purely political exercise. This is the same media who couldn't detect the political persecution of Donald Trump and the lawfare that was waged against him, his family and some of his closest supporters. I want to bring to your attention this from the Washington Post, because they can see nothing but political interference. The Washington Post editorial board wrote, "It is a valid fear that the case against John Bolton is a fresh instance of the old Soviet saying, 'Show me the man and I'll show you the crime.'" Josh, what's your response to that? We literally had an Attorney General campaigning on a Get Trump ticket, but apparently a warmonger and serial leaker like John Bolton is beyond scrutiny.
Yeah, Rita, my response to the Washington Post is very simple, which is frankly just go to hell. I mean, like whoever wrote those words should be fired. I mean, literally fired at best. I mean, tarred and feathered maybe back in the day would have been a more appropriate punishment there. I mean, where the hell have you people been? I mean, as you accurately say, Tish James, the Attorney General of New York State, literally traversed the entire state of New York back in 2018, saying, if you elect me as Attorney General of your state, well, the nation's largest state, I will do whatever it takes by any means necessary to sue sue and to prosecute and to bankrupt Donald Trump and the Trump organization there. You know, back in English common law, we would have called this a bill of attainder, which is an illegitimate piece of legislation, or in this case, a campaign stump promise to just single out a named party and not a neutral thing there. But I mean, how about so-called special counsel Jack Smith? By the way, I call him so-called still to this day because he's actually not a legitimate special counsel. Hold that aside. You know, Merrick Garland, Jack Smith, are you kidding me right now? I mean, show me the man, I will find you the crime. Alvin Bragg in New York City, the Stormy Daniels, Michael Cohen suit, this stupid attempt to try to fabricate and alter the beginning of the tolling of the statute of limitations to account for this New York State corporate bookkeeping fraudulent crap from 2016. Give me a break, Rita. These people have no leg to stand on whatsoever. It is ludicrous. It is shameful. Unfortunately, it's par for the course for the Washington Compost these days.
It is, and sadly, much of the coverage we're getting in this country follows that because they just basically regurgitate MSNBC talking points. Now, Donald Trump did have another huge win late last week with one of the lawfare cases against him collapsing. Josh, this was, again, another absurd case from the start. It was a political hit job carried out by Letitia James and a partisan New York judge. It was a judge-only trial, no jury. And Josh, New York Appeals Court last week dismissed the $500 million civil fraud penalty. Tell me about this, because this really threatened Donald Trump's empire. It could have bankrupted him. It would have impacted his children. It was, again, on its face absurd, but he was facing this $500 million payout.
So, Rita, it's very easy to forget about all the various tentacles of the Democrat lawfare complex. So Jack Smith, the federal special counsel, had these two cases, one in Washington, D.C. for January 6th, one in Florida, that's the Mar-a-Lago classified documents. Then you had Fonnie Willis in Fulton County, Georgia. She was the local Georgia prosecutor doing a similar kind of January 6-ish related prosecution there. Then you had Alvin Bragg in New York City, who we were just talking about with Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniels, this stupid hush money payment thing. And then you had Tish James, the Attorney General of New York State, who filed technically a civil lawsuit, but kind of very much looks and feels like an act of prosecution there. And her basic theory of the case, if you could even call it a case, was that the Trump organization, through Donald Trump, Eric Trump, Donald Trump Jr., and the other executives and officers of the organization there, that they essentially kind of fibbed the numbers a little bit on their applications for bank loans in order to secure interest rates at a more favorable rate. First of all, I have news for Tish James. Literally every person I've ever spoken to who's done this has done something similar. There's apparently a pervasive practice to the point of ubiquity, and frankly, financial institutions expect it. But the more important point is this, Rita, which is that the Trump organization, whatever they were calling certain assets, whether they were subjectively appraised, one, we're talking here about investment banks like Deutsche Bank, bulge bracket investment banks. Do your own appraisal work, first of all. Second of all, more to the point, the most important point of all, they were happy to do business with the Trump organization. In fact, Deutsche Bank, the #1 financial institution intermediary that was at issue in this case there, Rita, they literally wanted to do more business with the Trump organization. There was no victim here. There was literally no victim. But that didn't stop Justice Arthur Engoron from slapping a $500 million approximately penalty there. So just completely Orwellian stuff. But by the way, this case, as a New York native, this case was not just about the Trump organization. If this penalty had stuck, Rita, that would have sent the most chilling signal imaginable to real estate, to investors, to venture capitalists. Why would you go start a business in New York State if the Attorney General can say that you are cooking the books a little bit, even though they want to give you a loan anyway, and then all of a sudden you're out $500 million. But unfortunately, with the seeming election coming very soon of Zohran Mamdani, I think New Yorkers are probably going to get it one way or the other, unfortunately.
And the value that they ascribed to Mar-a-Lago, again, absurd. I mean, from over here in Australia, I could look at similar properties that have got that sort of price, and you would not get at 1/100th of Mar-a-Lago for that price, let alone the whole thing. I mean, it was crazy. Now, we've got another company being accused of going woke, Josh, perhaps going broke. Well, if not broke, they've seen their share price plummet fairly dramatically. This is Cracker Barrel, and their share price dived over a rebrand. Tell me why this has so many people upset and the manner in which woke is now becoming a risk factor.
So, Rita, Cracker Barrel is an iconic Southern restaurant chain here in the United States. I know this well because I live in Texas, as I said. I also went to university in North Carolina. In North Carolina, Tennessee, South Carolina. This is like Cracker Barrel USA. So I know a thing or two about Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel is an iconic Southern restaurant there with an iconic logo that is frequented by predominantly Southern people who go for the food and also the decor. You walk into a Cracker Barrel, it's filled with all sorts of Americana and kind of hunting memorabilia and things like that. So in comes this new woke CEO, and she really is woke. I literally looked at this woman's face, and my very first reaction is, why is she not co-hosting an MSNBC show with Rachel Maddow? I mean, this woman fundamentally belongs either on MSNBC or in the Harvard Kennedy School faculty lounge. She has no business whatsoever running a business that predominantly caters to Southern Americans there. And the giveaway, Rita, is that the CEO, when she unveiled this policy to get rid of the old iconic logo and bring in this kind of neutered, watered down crap, whatever this is there. She did that announcement, not in Nashville, Tennessee, not in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, in New York City. Do you know how many Cracker Barrel restaurants are in New York City? 0. There is literally not a single Cracker Barrel restaurant in New York City there. So that gives away the whole game there. She's trying to appease just the wokerati and not her actual own customers. Unfortunately, just like Bud Light, Target, all these other companies there, she's going to learn that the customer is always right. The customers are going to make her pay for this, I think.
Josh Hammer, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Rita.